Gee whiz.
Gee Willikers.
Shaggy.
I'm sorry? Oh, like from Scooby-Doo?
Mm-hmm. Doesn't she say Gee Willikers?
He? She?
No.
It's
She says
man.
Gee Willikers, Shaggy. No.
Oh.
That doesn't sound right. Velma. She says that.
I don't have the
Not a
Scooby-Doo
big-
characters.
You didn't watch Scooby-Doo?
I did, but
Did you watch
it was
Scooby-Doo?
never one of my favorites.
Yeah, I watched Scooby-Doo.
Quite a bit or no?
A medium amount.
Enough to know
Velma.
some of the names.
Velma and
I never saw
Shaggy.
the movie.
Fred, Velma, Daphne, Shaggy, Scooby.
Like Fred might have been the
What's-
only one besides Shaggy and Scooby.
What's the
that I-
premise? Like, what are they?
They solve mysteries.
What?
What do you mean? What's the premise? And their dog talks.
So you've never seen it at all?
No.
Wow, that's actually impressive.
Shoo-wee.
I mean, I've
You know,
watched more than
I
apparently
try to live a life where there are classic things that it's like, how long can I go before I never watch that? Well, there's something else that we were talking about the other day. Obviously, like Scooby-Doo's one that I've never seen. The musical,
Oh, Sound of Music.
Sound of Music.
I don't
Never seen
think
it.
I have seen
Scooby-Doo and Sound of Music are quite in the same category.
Not exactly.
I feel like there's other like type shows like Scooby-Doo that I haven't seen either.
But you've never, like, you know the premise of, like,
The Flintstones.
they unmask the person and the person goes, I would have gotten away with it except for these meddling kids. Like, you've never,
No,
none of that?
no,
Wow.
and no, I haven't seen. I've
That's amazing.
I've had Flintstone gummies as a child.
Yeah.
Other than that, no,
Flintstone
I haven't
gummies.
watched
I didn't do much
Child.
Flintstones.
those vitamins.
Flintstones is just the precursor to Family Guy. Just the first version. of it.
That's very accurate.
Yeah, well,
Man.
the more you know.
Yeah.
Not a Scooby-Doo guy.
No, you're not.
I've never seen the movies. I saw obviously I watched the cartoon. I watched the reruns of maybe the original version. There's like a Scooby-Doo that's come out since
Yeah.
I was a kid.
Yeah.
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 So, but I saw the original show because Cartoon Network used to run all that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And then I never saw the movies.
I think literally the only show I watched as a child was SpongeBob. Just over and over.
At least you've seen that. There was an episode of Scooby-Doo where they brought in the 1960s
The
live
Globetrotters?
action. No, I think so. The live action show of Batman from the 60s, and they animated him and they put him in
Yeah.
with.
Yep. I've seen
Scooby-Doo.
those episodes.
That was pretty crazy.
Yeah. There you go.
Okay, well, missions.
Yeah.
We want to talk about missions.
Let's do it.
Let's talk about solving mysteries.
No.
Missions.
Kindness, and I'll be spineless. Tryna shine a light in Nashville, where you find us. Planted in the middle of the city like the Ryman. Rare life looking like gold, real Leviathan. Multiplied fish, didn't need Poseidon. I don't pop a pill, I need a verse, not a Vicodin. Feeling like Daniel Cormier in a lion's den. Had the dog out Simba, cut the backwoods like they called out Timber. Had a hater tell me that the tribe not the best. Man, that's feeling like a stretch, and you not that limbo. Everything I love, that's a reach.
All right, welcome to That's a Reach. We're going to answer some questions today about missions and young adults and how we can be involved more as young adults in missions. We hope you enjoy this episode. Question number 1. How can we impact the nations if we can't afford to take off work to go on a mission trip? And then connecting that question with another, how can young adults who aren't necessarily called to vocational missions be better equipped to participate in advancing the kingdom?
Okay, yeah. For starters, the answer, I think this is going to sound like almost like, I think we view this kind of answer as almost like cliche Sunday school, but it's actually not, it's not like the most basic thing you can do. It is the actually most important thing you can do for missions is pray,
Yeah.
right? You can pray for missionaries, you can pray for nations, you can pray for people groups, you can pray for, just all kinds of things that are mission related. And that is probably the most important thing you can do. I mean, it is the most important thing you can do, because from there, that is you participating in what God is doing and orienting your mind and heart towards what God is doing.
Mm-hmm.
I think that we kind of almost, we're like, yeah, but what can I actually do? And it's like, no, prayer is the most important thing that you can do for missions. So you should start there, you know? And I think that, you know, a company that I'd love to bring up, or not a company, but an organization, is Voice of the Martyrs. Voice of the Martyrs, I want to say they're in Sapulpa?
They're at Bartlesville.
Bartlesville, that's right, Bartlesville. The Voice of the Martyrs produces a magazine and a prayer calendar and all kinds of information and material about like where Christians are being oppressed all over the world. And they provide, I think there was a year I went through their prayer calendar and like every day I would pray for whatever that day's nation prayer request was, right? And that's a great way to orient your mind on missions and to be participating in what God's doing, even if you physically can't do anything else. You can pray, and that is the most important thing. So I would start there. Additionally, you know, one of the things that's interesting about like the phrasing of like can't afford to take off work, you know, obviously there's things like PTO, and I understand that there's, you know, sometimes we have limited amounts of that. Sometimes our bills are piling up. But I think there's something to be said for asking God if you should go on a mission trip in spite of your bills looking a certain way or your time off looking a certain way. And I mean, I've seen all kinds of things. I've seen people, you know, for instance, I saw one summer, one of our young adults took off, like, I think it was like 3 or 4 weeks, but whatever the last week he took off, he didn't have any PTO for it. And his boss was like, you know what, we're going to pay you for that week because we love what you're doing.
Yeah.
It was like, that wasn't even a Christian company that he worked for. They just really appreciated, like, he wasn't taking time off just to go on vacation. He was taking time off to go do ministry. And they saw that and they ended up paying him for a week's worth of work where he wasn't even there.
Yeah.
And it's like that happened because he was trusting in the Lord and going and doing what he believed God was telling him to do. And I'm not saying, you know, again, we're not supposed to test the Lord by backing him into a corner, but if you feel like God's calling you to a mission trip, then you shouldn't then, okay, I feel like God's calling me to something. I shouldn't then evaluate the practical circumstances unless if I'm evaluating those circumstances in order to say, okay, how can I best obey God and also what do I need to give over to him in prayer in this? That's fine. But if if you immediately examine the circumstances as a way to say, oh, God, I can't actually do what you've asked me to do, you've missed the point, right? Because if God's asking you to do it, he's going to provide a way and make a way and pay your way.
Totally.
And the thing is, like, people raise money for mission trips in the first place, right? Like, that's the whole point. Like, most of us can't afford to go, you know? And so there's all kinds of factors in there about, like, if God's calling you, are you trusting him? Or did God say, hey, I want you to go here, and you said, well, I can't, God. I can't afford it. It's like, well, he didn't ask you to go by your own means. He asked you to trust him, and he will get you there as well.
I think, you know, we get so caught up in having this limited perspective where it's like, well, I would like to go do mission work, like you're saying, but it's like, I'm looking at the temporary right now, and I can't do it. And it's like, no, that's a wrong focus of what we should be focused on, which is focused on the eternal things. And if God, like you said, if God calls you to it, he's going to provide for it. And if you start to have that eternal perspective by doing the things such as, you know, prayer calendars, or, you know, having more of a missions thought process during your prayers, or there's, you know, Voice of the Martyrs has a great podcast about missionary stories. It's like, there are so many things that you can start focusing your mind on regarding mission work, to be like, okay, my mind, I want to do this. I want to go serve the Lord in this place or in that place or with this mission trip. And as you start focusing on that, and as you start praying about it, God will make a way for you to do that. He makes, you know, impossible things possible. So if we focus on that, that's where we're supposed to be.
Yeah. Which then kind of leads into, once you begin to have that more mission mindset and that mission heart, there's also, it's like, how can you impact? Okay, thinking through the idea that nobody can really afford to go on a mission trip. How about the fact that you can also give to somebody's mission trip, and you don't have to pay their whole way, but you're contributing. And you might say, well, you know, there's kind of two objections. That one is like, well, I'm not really doing that much. Okay, literally the thing that got me into giving to missions was because I heard of an organization called, I believe it's called Rope Holders, and they pay student debt for people so they can get on the mission field faster or like immediately, basically.
Sure.
I literally, when I was first starting out giving to anything, I gave them $7 a month. That is nothing.
Sure.
Like $7 a month, like I was, but what did it do? It began to change my heart towards like, where am I putting my money? How am I thinking about my money? Am I giving to the nations or giving to, missionaries? And so that's a simple, you're in your church, you hear somebody's raising money to go. Do you have $20? Do you have $10? They could use that, and
Nothing's too small.
right. And then you start thinking, well, I can't, if you think like, well, I can't afford $20. It's like, okay, you come look me in the face and tell me that for the course of a month, you don't buy a Monster.
Mm-hmm.
You don't buy a Starbucks coffee.
Let me see your
You-
budget.
Like nothing at all. And that's the whole point is like giving on some level should be sacrificial.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're telling me like you literally can't afford $20, like then we need to talk about your circumstances anyway. We need to talk about your finances because we need to get you out of whatever hole you're in where you can't spare $20. But if you're telling me for the course of a month you can't spend $20, either you're in a really bad situation and we need to talk about that, or you actually can, you just aren't looking at really where your money's
Yeah,
going.
you've got four different, subscriptions.
Yeah,
to-
you've got 4 streaming
something.
services or
Yeah.
something. It's like, I bet if you went without Netflix and Hulu and Amazon Prime or something, I bet you could
be okay.
afford to give somebody $20,
Yeah.
And it's like, that's small, but actually that's exactly the point. The transition away from spending your money here to spending your money here, no matter how small, will begin that process of you thinking about it correctly,
That's good.
And then to kind of tack on that secondary part of the question about like, how can you're not called to vocational missions. You're not called to vocational to do that full time. Okay, well, there are short-term mission trips, right? Those are great, like a way to orient yourself to missions. There's also the fact that there's missions going on that aren't, we go to Riverbend every week. There are people in Riverbend sharing the gospel with people. That's down the street. Like you could go participate in that. That community is largely Hispanic. There are people there who can translate, but there's also people there who are, speaking, like learning to speak Spanish. And even that, you want to feel like you're in a foreign country in your own backyard.
Yeah.
All you have to do is go to a community where they don't primarily speak English, and if you've been on mission trips, we're spoiled rotten when it comes to learning a language. Every other country in the world, they're bilingual, trilingual, because they know, well, if I travel at all, it's going to help to know these other languages. And we just assume everywhere I go, somebody speaks English.
Yeah.
And honestly, there's a blessing in that, but we take it for granted by never venturing outside of learning English at all. We take for granted learning Spanish in high school. We forget most of it, And it's like you could literally go on mission to your next door neighbor.
Yeah.
You could go on mission to the community down the street. You just have to be intentional about it. You have to make time for it, and you have to care about it, which goes back to my initial answer to all of this, which is pray.
Yeah.
Because if you're praying about the nations and you're praying about your own nation and your own communities, your heart will begin to mold around, instead of spending, honestly, at this point, it costs $20 just to go to a movie in the movie theater. And it's like, okay, well, instead of doing that with your free time, take that money and that free time and go on mission to somewhere very close to you, somewhere that you're going to go sleep in your own bed tonight,
That's good.
Yeah. Well, it leads into the next question of basically, how do we get ourselves to want to do that? The question is, how can we develop a heart for the nations? Some of them eat bugs. So how can a Westerner learn to love people who are weird like that?
Yeah, right. And I honestly, I want to actually stop and say I appreciate the way this question is worded, and here's why. It's almost kind of like saying it in a way that lots of us have thought about it, but don't want to admit that that's what we think. And it's honest. It's like, okay, it is honest. Now, the first part of that is realizing like normal is only normal because you're used to it. You know what I mean? Like it's
Right.
You're the weird one to literally everybody else, right? And so there's a humility there. Also, and this kind of goes into like what I was just saying about like local missions. TU has a huge international student presence.
Yeah.
The nation's literally coming here. You want to go share the gospel, be on mission, go get linked in with the international students organizations on TU's campus and share the gospel with people who are coming from the countries that we don't even have access to fully, like countries that we don't.
The closed countries.
Yeah, right. Then on that note, you think about things like go spend time with them, and then not only are you going to learn some things that are cool, learn maybe the why this culture does this thing differently, but also you're going to have an appreciation and a heart for those people and go, you know what? This is still a person. They're not just a weirdo that's doing this weird thing that I don't understand. This is a human being that has a different background than I do. And you're going to develop some appreciation for that. I mean, I told our Brazilian partners when I was in Brazil, they would say, "What's the weirdest thing you've seen in Brazil?" And I said, "Your gas stations are bars." Like, that's weird. Like, people are hanging out at the gas station on Friday night drinking.
Yeah.
And I was like, that's weird. And they laughed because they were like, I've never thought about it.
Yeah,
and the ones who had been to America were like, yeah, now that you mention it, that's not in America. Like, your gas stations aren't also the local bar.
Hangout.
You know?
Yeah.
But, and so they just, like, but that was weird to me, normal to them. But I don't have some weird, American, like, superiority complex towards my Brazilian partners, Brazilian brothers in Christ, because we spent so much time together. I love them for who they are and what they and I love getting to see them. I love getting to go to Brazil. I just found out that one of our that Gian is coming up here soon, and I was like, that's amazing. And I already asked him. I said, will you come talk to our young adults about missions in Brazil and about this is a perfect example. We're talking about getting a heart for the nations. Gian owns a English language school, and he has several sites in Brazil where he teaches English. And you know what else he does at all of those sites? He shares the gospel with his employees and his students, and they come to the Lord because of his English language school.
And you would be shocked at the places and the meetings and the rooms that he finds himself in because
all this, and he has all these connections. All of a sudden, he gets us into schools there because a bunch of those kids go to his English language schools, and he knows the teachers and he knows the principals. And then all of a sudden, he goes to them and he says, "Hey, I've got Americans in town. Can they come give a presentation?" And I mean, we couldn't go into a school here and share the gospel, but we can do it in Brazil because of his connections and just being, Americans. It buys us this open door into these schools. And that's my whole point is like, that's like, we think about it from our perspective. We went there, but Gian is just, that's his home. He's there and he's able to do all that because he has a mission heart about his backyard, his neighborhood, and it's like this is what I'm talking about in what I've been talking about with the whole gospel focus theme this year is like, when you go to work, are you there to be sanctified and to spread the gospel, or are you there to make a buck, right? To like get your next paycheck and then turn around and buy, the next material item that you can worship instead of God. You know what I mean? And it's like, this all goes back to, do you don't think you have $20? Let me ask you what your hobbies are. Because I'll admit I blow some money on some trivial things, and it's like, if I do that, and then when somebody's raising money for a mission trip, I don't have $1 to give them. Man, my heart is not in the right place on missions.
Yeah, and I love answering, like, focusing on the first part of that question of like, how do I develop a heart for these things? And I think that really does come back to the first answer for the first question. Prayer. Thinking about my own life, just the most fruitful times of my life, speaking in terms of like my influence on other people, is when I'm constantly, routinely praying for the people in my life. And when my heart is oriented to love them and to want to pour into them and to want to influence them in the way that impacts their lives towards the gospel the most, it's only because God has changed my heart to be able to see those things for them through prayer.
And you can I always tell people, back up to where you actually are. You don't have a heart for the nations. Okay, then don't pretend. Don't go before God and be like, God, I just want to lift up these people in prayer. Start with like, God, help me. Help me want to pray for them. Help me desire. Help me care about their problems. It's like, break my heart for the nations. Start with that prayer.
Like,
He loves
to answer that.
Yeah, and it's like, you can be honest with God. You can tell God, like, God, I actually don't have a heart for the nations.
He already knows.
Can you?
so.
Yeah. You're not fooling him. It's not like he's like, oh my gosh, you don't care about the nations. Like,
How dare you?
He's aware, so you can start where you actually are and just say, God, help me care about the nations.
Yeah, it's
break
awesome.
my heart for people groups.
Yeah, especially if you feel like the Lord is convicting you of that. Be praying about that, but then 2, realize all of the resources that are there in your community.
Yeah.
Here at Evergreen, we have mission nights quarterly or twice a year or whatever. Go to all of those things. Go to
Listen
look
to
in
those
all of our
testimonies.
sermons and our podcasts and the things where we have testimonies of people going on missions and all those things. Learn about how not weird it is because there's so many experiences. And then as soon as you get the opportunity where you feel like the Lord's calling you, we have tons of opportunities for short-term mission trips, the Guatemala mission trip and all of those things. Go on one.
Yeah.
And then you'll learn very quickly, just like you've heard if you've listened to the testimonies, people, their lives are changed by going on those things and they love it despite how uncomfortable they were.
Yeah.
Sure.
So if you take an opportunity, if you feel like the Lord's calling you to, and go on one of those short-term mission trips, and you'll realize
will have a heart for
I actually don't care how weird this is. It's actually kind of amazing to
Yeah.
see a completely different side of life.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's good.
But yeah, prayer is important. Experiences are important.
Yeah.
Missions is important because God has called us to those things.
Yeah.
Alrighty. Well, this has been That's a Reach. We hope you enjoyed this episode, and we'll be back next week with more intriguing thoughts on how to live the life that God's called us to. All right.
Nice.
We almost wore the same shirt today.
I know. I thought this morning. I was like,
Exact same
you know
color.
what? I almost grabbed that green one.
Everything I love, that's a reach.
Welcome to the reach. Hey, welcome to the reach.